Alright guys, so I want to do a long-term review of the OnePlus Open. I've had this for about 2 months now, and I've spent time with just about every single mainstream foldable phone that came out here in the United States. I guess that's only the Pixel Fold and the Z Fold 5. But with those, I enjoyed using them for its time, but then I always just switch back to just a regular slab phone. This is the first folding phone that I've ever used that even after 2 months, I still don't want to put it down. So I want to go over my thoughts about my experience with the OnePlus Open. So let's just get right into it. So let's first talk about the build and the design. It is really, really thin. So even when you open it up, as you can see, this is definitely one of the thinner phones out there. So even though this is a foldable phone, because it's still relatively thin, even when it's closed, I have no problem holding this comfortably for long periods of time. And because this weight is exactly what you would have gotten on a iPhone 14 Pro Max, I can hold this comfortably without the weight being a problem. There are two colors available. There's a black and then there's a green, the emerald green as they call it. Okay, so I want to show the difference between the green and the black. So first off, the green one is heavier. It's 5 grams heavier, and I'm just trying to determine if I notice it. I do. It is lighter. It's not significant. So the reason why I have two to begin with was initially I bought the green one because I like the way the color looks, but then I realized after the fact that the black one is actually lighter, and for me, weight, especially when it comes to a foldable, is more important than aesthetics. So there's some attention to detail on both of these finishes. It's interesting that it's more than just a color difference. The choice of materials are actually different. Like I said, glossy versus matte, vegan leather versus glass, slightly heavier. Even the buttons feel a little bit different too. But yeah, overall, I'm keeping the black one just because I feel like it's a little bit more durable and it's lighter. One thing I don't like when it comes to durability with both of them though is the glass cover, which is, I guess, might be part of the lens design. This is all glass, and this is very susceptible to cracking, and if there's cracks, more than likely this glass piece cannot be replaced, and there's a good chance that the entire phone might need to be replaced. And if you do get a case, make sure you get something that covers this. And speaking of cases, they both come with their own, which is awesome. I prefer the black because I prefer the bezels to be black. It's just less distracting than when it's green. Not the end of the world though, but around the sides, you can still see the hinge design. That part is still exposed, and at the back, the green case is green and the black case is black. Once you slap the case on, the only problem, like I mentioned though, is you're not getting much protection around the glass surrounding the camera system. So this is what the cutouts look like, and this is what they both look like when they're opened. I do like the included case. I mean, I'm always happy when companies do that. And also includes a fast 67-watt charger. It's a proprietary charger. I mean, yes, it's USB-C, but you're only getting that super fast charging if you use a SuperVOOC charger that's included in the box. So, all right, so now I want to spend some time talking about this display. First, I want to start off by saying that I am not getting that advertised 2800 nits when I'm outside using this phone, especially in sunny South Florida where I live. It gets really, really bright here, and this is by far one of the dimmest phones I've used in 2023. I think that 2800 nits is reserved more for maybe a small window of the screen when you're watching HDR content, but you're not seeing 2800 nits in outdoor areas. In fact, it is dimmer than the iPhone, dimmer than the Pixel, the iPhone 15 Pro Max, I should say. The Z Fold, even the Pixel was able to give me a brighter screen, even though those would dim down a little bit. Thankfully, I don't really notice this dimming even after long-term sessions in the sunlight, but it starts off at not a very good max brightness. So that part was a big bummer for me, and I did have to get used to that. And, since we're talking about the display, I want to talk about this crease here, and I'm just going to shine these bright lights on it. This isn't realistic of what you'll be seeing in the real world, but the crease is very subdued dude. So if I get the lighting just right, you can see the crease. And unlike all the foldable phones like the Z Fold and the Pixel, where it just has one deeper groove down the middle, this looks like it's more spread out. And if I'm not shining light on it, and if you're just looking at it normally, and especially once content is present, I'm not able to see the crease really at all. And I know in a lot of other videos, you'll see other reviewers say like, oh, I got used to the crease after a while. And I do too, but the thing is like here, I'm not used to the crease. I'm not seeing it in 95% of lighting environments I'm in. I don't see the crease at all. So I think OnePlus actually solved the crease issue with this phone. If you've been distracted by the crease before, this alone could be a reason for you to jump over to the foldables. And since we're also on display, I want to talk about some of the settings. Out of the box, I was really happy that the screen color mode was set to natural, but for me, I switched it over to Pro, which gave me more of a color profile that you would get in like your laptop or a screen that's typically accurate. So the white balance ends up looking a little bit warmer, but I think if you use this and you get used to it, you'll actually prefer it. This is how a well-calibrated screen is supposed to look. But if you don't care about any of that, you just want the most vibrant colors out there is a vivid profile. I don't recommend that though. I really recommend you getting used to using an accurate color profile. So something else I had to change. I mean, this is in the display section of the settings, so I'll talk about it. Out of the box, the scaling was just way too large to where it didn't really make sense having a foldable phone anymore because everything was just so big. Everything just took up so much space on your screen that you're not really getting the screen real estate of this large canvas. So as you can see here, just everything was just way too big. This is how it came out of the box. So what I did was I played around with the settings a lot and I found that this worked the best. I just changed the display size to small, and on the font, I leave it at the second level, and I make sure it's on a Roboto. Once I did that, I found that the scaling worked very similar to what you would get on the iPhone. If you do have this phone and you felt like everything is just a little bit too zoomed in or things are a lot bigger, once you change this, then you get a proper scaling. So as you can see here, this looks like the iPhone, and then the iPhone looks just like every other phone in terms of the scaling. So now you can actually see more details in your notifications. You could read through more text without having to scroll less, and it's just more comfortable on your eyes. So that's something I would definitely recommend. And finally, and for me, this is something that's always bugged me with OnePlus phones that no one ever talks about. OnePlus likes to have some apps in 60 hertz and some of them at 120 hertz, and it's very jarring. And it's something that I noticed. It's something that they haven't fixed until now. So for screen refresh rate, it comes at auto out the box. And I know this does drain your battery a little bit more, but I found that taking it off of auto and switching it to high just gave me a consistent experience throughout. So every single app, including Google Maps, YouTube, etc., now runs at the 120 hertz, and it does seem like it takes a hit on the battery life. That's definitely up to you if you want to take that hit. But for me, it's been worth it. Since I'm talking about battery right now, let me just talk about that overall. I think this is one of the major cons with this particular phone. Thankfully, with that 67-watt Super VOOC charger, I'm able to go from 0 to 100% in like 45 minutes. But the thing is, though, I have to charge twice a day. Once before I go to bed, and then one more time at some point in the middle of the day, because if I don't, I'm not making it till the end of the day. So that's been something that's very disappointing. But I think a part of it is because of the refresh rate, the settings that I use. So maybe your mileage might vary. And also, if you're using the larger screen a lot, which I am, and I'll get into some of the software and how I feel about using this phone overall as a foldable. But most of my time, if I'm able to, this phone is unfolded. And because this larger screen has a higher resolution than all of the other foldables out there, so this one has a PPI of 421, while the Pixel Fold and the Z Fold 5 has under 400. Anything 400 or above is considered perfect. You're not able to visually see pixels. And I do remember when I had the Pixel Fold and the Z Fold 5, with this screen unfolded, I was able to see pixels. This is pixel perfect, I should say, and I think the resolution does take a hit on the battery life too. And both phones are in a QHD plus resolution, so you're going to be draining more battery than you will with the other foldable phones that I've mentioned several times. Thankfully, it charges fast, but I know you're not always going to have a charger with you. And because this doesn't have wireless charging, that could be an inconvenience for some people. I understand why they did it. I mean, it does help the phone become a lot thinner. And I know a lot of you guys are going to say that those wireless charging coils are tiny and they're super slim. But it's not just adding the component is the issue. You have to design cooling around it, and you have to do wiring around it and all that stuff. It's the same thing with like gaming laptops or laptops and stuff. The chips are super, super tiny, but what takes up all the space is the cooling and the wiring, etc. If you've ever opened up a laptop. So it's going to be something similar with the phone. So I do believe that they had to make a decision to not include wireless charging on this, to maybe get a larger battery, to have better cooling, because the performance is great. I could run this thing through crazy different scenarios, like recording long videos, taking lots of photos, gaming, and this phone never heats up. So from my perspective, if they had to sacrifice wireless charging for this, then I'm okay with it. I find myself not really using wireless charging too much anyway, but anyway, moving on. Okay, and last thing I want to talk about with the display is on the main screen, it is an anti-reflective display, or at least there's an anti-reflective coating on top of it, and it makes a very big difference, especially when you're outdoors. One thing about these more matte coatings on a display, though, is when you have bright lights shining on it, the light tends to disperse throughout the entire screen, so you do lose some of those inky black OLED type of contrast that you would get otherwise. But I think for a screen like this, it was the right choice. Using some of the other foldable phones that I've mentioned several times in this video, using those main display outdoors with the amount of glare and reflection that's casted onto the display kind of made it seem less appealing to use out in sunlight. I haven't had any issues with this matte coating. So everything is shaping up towards this being the best foldable phone out there. The main con I mentioned is the battery, and I'll get to one other con a bit later on. Actually, I'll mention a gentle con. I'm calling this a gentle con because it's not the end of the world, but the speakers aren't that great. I know OnePlus spent a lot of time talking about that, and it looks like there's 4 speakers. There's 2 on the top and then 2 at the bottom. They sound pretty good until you compare it to something like the iPhone. You're getting, I think it's just missing some bass, and even though it gets very loud, it's still it sounds a bit hollow and a little bit tinny compared to the iPhone. So you know what? Let me just do a little speaker test. All right, so, and here is the iPhone 15 Pro Max. So, I mean, I don't know how much the camera's picking it up, but there's a good amount more clarity on the iPhone. And I found that the iPhone compares very similarly to the S23 Ultra and the Pixel 8 Pro in terms of their speaker quality. So I think there is some room for improvement on a future version of the OnePlus Open in terms of the speakers. And one thing that OnePlus spent a lot of time talking about in their press event was the flicker, or the lack of it. 1/60, you're not seeing any flickering. I didn't really start seeing it until around 1/160th of a second, which is significantly better than most other phones I've used. This doesn't bother everyone though, but if you are sensitive to flicker the way I am, this is something to be aware of. So now I want to spend some time talking about the software. There's a lot of different features, but I'm not going to talk about everything, only the stuff that I actually use. So one thing I really like about OnePlus phones, and a lot of other YouTubers have not mentioned this, is so you can have folders in the top right and just say it's a little bit difficult to reach. Just swiping up brings it all down, and then you can easily access everything much faster. And this is something I use constantly, especially if I'm on the go And if I need to just quickly launch an app, unfortunately, it only works when folded. It doesn't work on the main screen. And I think that's something I would have really appreciated on this larger screen. Because like say here, so say I want to open up Google Maps and I only have one free hand. I almost can't. I was really looking forward to that feature working on the main screen, but it doesn't seem like it's supported, so that kind of sucks. And one thing I always liked about OnePlus phones, the way they do their recents, you have all of the icons right here, so you can just quickly scroll to what you need to. And this is like a nice little convenience that I use on every single OnePlus that I had. But when you use the main screen, it's gone. So it's a completely different interface. So it's just like these little things. I just want there to be more consistency throughout the operating system. But here's some really cool things about this software. So I know you've seen a lot of those multitasking and how you can have different apps and have it bounce around and all over the place. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that. It is awesome. It is useful, but I'm not going to add any value to what you've already seen on the internet. But one thing I do want to spend some time on is this app drawer. So I love having these app drawers. I use them a lot. It seems like once you set up apps here, the only option is to have it as a pop-up. So you can't do it full screen unless you open it from this drawer and manually expand it. But here's something that's really, really awesome. So here I have a Microsoft Word document open, and say I wanted to attach a file. So all of my recent images are here and my recent documents. So if I just wanted to throw in this image, all I do is just drag it right into the app that's open and it'll work. Microsoft has APIs that's built into Microsoft Word that supports it. So one thing you might be thinking is, yeah, not every app is going to support this. And you're right. But OnePlus came out with a very clever workaround. So here I'm on Facebook, and say I wanted to create a new post. Typically, you'd have to hit plus, create the post, etc. Or you would be in the Photos app or the Gallery app, and then you would hit share from there, etc. But you can do something similar. So if the app doesn't have it supported, what OnePlus did was use these shortcuts that are just built into Android. So as you can see, I just threw that image in there, and now it's giving me an option to post it as my news feed, to my groups, or to my story. So if I just hit news feed, there you go. So now I can just post this content very easily and without leaving the app or bouncing around different apps. And it works on every single app I can think of. So I tried like every single app that I can possibly think of where I might want to share something from this drawer here. This is some really good quality of life software additions that really, really makes this phone usable. So one criticism of Android versus the iPhone is the apps just tend to work better on iPhone. And I agree. The apps get updated faster and they just usually run and perform better on iPhone. As of right now, that is a fact. But I mean, because this is a foldable phone and because this is so large, many times, like, I don't need to use an app. I can just go to the website. So if I'm going to Best Buy, which I spend way too much money on and way too much time at that store, I bet all of the employees hate me there. But the cool thing about it is, look at this. I am using the desktop version of bestbuy.com, and you get a lot more features and functionality by using the actual website versus using the app. And that could be the same with Amazon or your banking app or any website you may go to. Just pretty much everything, the actual website is usually a better experience and a more robust experience than what the apps provide. So that's something to really keep in mind. And like I said, I'm in the desktop mode and I'm able to see everything very comfortably. And especially if you change those display settings, like I mentioned earlier in the video, I think you're going to be really, really happy with this. And because and I mean, as much as I love phones and they're fun and everything, I depend on these for my work. So having this larger screen, doing like my Google Meet meetings, and having an Excel spreadsheet open on the side and all that stuff, really, really, really just comes in handy. And since everything at my job is all in the cloud, our Gmail, obviously Gmail, our chat client is, and our accounting software. is NetSuite. So see, I have full access to our I have full access to our ERP system here, and I can do everything on this, from approving journal entries, running reports, etc. So everything right from my phone. So, and especially since I work from home, I find myself just taking this phone with me to lunch, and I would have like a longer lunch break because I can take my meetings on this phone. If someone's sharing their screen, I can still view it comfortably, and I can still have a different app open on the side if I need to refer to something like from my email, or if I need to refer from my document, etc. So having this larger canvas like really is life changing in terms of the freedom it grants me with this. So that's why I keep on saying that foldable phones are the future, but I think we're still dealing with some of the durability issues. And let me just talk about that really quickly. There's been a few reviewers out there who I know have only spent like a few days or maybe a week or two with this phone, and then they're talking about how this Hinge is not as flexible or as fluid as it once was, and they're concerned about the durability of this Hinge. But like I said, I've been using this for 2 months, and that green unit I had, it kind of just sat in my closet for maybe like a month unused. And then after like a month of using this, I went back to the green, and the hinges on both of them felt identical. So this still feels brand new. There's absolutely no creaking. It's still very smooth tension, and it still has that snap once you open it far enough. And because the hinge is flush and it closes completely, dirt or grit never really gets into this screen, so I haven't had any scratches. Oh, and also when I had the Pixel Fold and the Z Fold 5, I ended up getting a whole bunch of tiny creases on the display. I haven't had one of those yet. So let me just, I just want to move on over to the camera. And this is probably the biggest point of disappointment for me. And I really hate to say it. This has really good hardware. I don't know if maybe the software just doesn't know how to handle it well, but I'm not really happy with a lot of the images and videos I get. Video is very noisy. Nighttime video looks okay too, so I did go out to downtown and recorded some footage, and it looks fine. It looks a lot better than most Android phones did in the past. But now that we're looking at the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Pixel 8 Pro, which have amazing video quality, this just being middling quality really starts to hurt this phone. The colors just look drab. There is detail in some shots, but not so much. I don't know. It just seems like it's making weird decisions on how to process the images. It looks like when it does a good job, it does a really good job. And I feel like this lens, at least the main lens, is a little bit too wide for what I'm accustomed to. So you get a lot of distorted edges and stuff. It almost seems like the main lens is kind of similar to an ultra wide, and that's something I really don't like. Hopefully some software improvements could come, but at the end of the day, this is by far the best folding phone. There's nothing close to it as of right now. And just based off of product launch history, we're not going to see a replacement for the Z Fold 5 until maybe summer, and then maybe around the same time for the Pixel Fold 2 whenever that comes out. So unless something comes out next year that I'm not aware of, I think this might be one of the better foldable phones out there. So yeah, if I didn't cover anything in this video, just leave me a comment and I'll make sure I get back to it. If this video is helpful, give it a like. If you want to see more videos in the future, I typically cover a lot of phones, gaming laptops, etc. So if that seems like it's going to be your cup of tea, get subscribed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, thanks a lot, guys. Bye.